got a very special guest today. If you've heard of the show, The View, we've got Sunny Hostin. And she is here. We're talking about, I mean, there was a lot of entrepreneurship stuff. Like, really.
Hold on, Joe. Oh, here we go. Watch him try to sell it to you.
Her story is inspirational. And then we got into a lot of whatever the fuck else. Like vasectomies and how we should normalize them.
And that was important.
I mean, that really would help change the world.
I did not think coming on a podcast about Bell Gloss and wine would lead to vasectomy, but that's where we ended, and like I enjoyed that.
We get into so much good stuff here. So yes, it's wine. She talks about her books, her upcoming show, her upcoming wine, which I'm really excited about. So there's a ton of good stuff.
My wine's not going to be as good as your wine.
Oh, I can't wait to try it.
We have to work on a wine together.
I don't know. I think I told you when we were barrel tasting, but I said you got a good palate because the three barrels you chose out of all the barrels were my favorites too.
Really?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you blended a goddamn good red wine.
I have reached the upper room. Okay.
Now we just got to bottle more than 3 bottles.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're reaching a point in our society where there's no ideological tolerance.
Yeah.
That people have gotten so extreme. You have to identify as one camp or another, or it's going to come to blood, right? And that wasn't how I grew up. That's not what I recall.
No.
And so I'm glad because I think we're probably pretty close in age. And so I think that at some point the wheels came off.
Yeah.
I don't know when that was, but you're very in tune with the years at The View. When did you start to see the wheels fall off? What was it that really contributed to that, in your opinion?
I think I started to see it around 2016. I think when Barack Obama was elected, I think this country was at the point where it was like, we have reached, this shining city on a hill. I can't remember the exact thing that Reagan would say, but, it was like this shining city on the hill. But I'm misquoting him. And I think we thought, if you could have a black president, you could have a female president, you could have a gay president, someone from the LGBTQ plus community, like anyone can be president. The leader of the free world, the strongest country in the world. And then we started seeing this feeling like, oh no, there's not enough pie for everyone. At least that's how I saw it. And coming from such a multiracial background, I just thought, but there's pie for everyone. And I saw everything take a turn. You can call it a backlash if you want. I look at it as fear, because before then, especially as a prosecutor, I didn't know how you voted, nor did I care. I actually don't really care that much right now. But I didn't care about those things. I just cared about whether or not you were a good person, whether or not you were loyal, whether or not you took good care of your family, whether or not you loved your mom, maybe whether or not you liked Bell Gloss, maybe whether or not you, like to cook, like just everyday things that we all had in common. And then all of a sudden there was like this bright red line where you had to be on one side or the other. And I don't like that, because I'm not really on one side or the other. Like, people listen to me on The View and they're like, she's this or she's that. You don't know what I am. I am a multiracial mom and wife and Catholic and bad roller skater and drinker of Bell Gloss and a farmer. You don't know anything about me if you are defining me by like how I vote. And so I just think,
or how they think you vote, even.
Or how they think. Yeah. Well, that's even the worst
Yeah.
part of it. How you think I vote.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything kind of fell off the rails, and
Do you think at the end of the Obama administration it fell off the rails?
No, during.
It was during.
I think during a State of the Union address, someone yell, "You lie," to the President of the United States. Now you cannot respect the president or like the president, but you must respect the office of the president. Yeah. You must respect the institutions of the presidency. And when I heard that, I thought, not only do they not respect him, they don't respect the institution. And this will surprise certain people, but I'm an institutionalist. I believe in our institutions. I believe in the Supreme Court. Yes, people will disagree with me. I believe in Congress. I believe in the Senate. I believe that those things must hold for our democracy. And so when I hear people attacking our institutions, like, that's a fake governor, or that's like not a real congressperson, it hurts me to my core, because like, our institutions must hold to make us different from other countries and dictatorships and fascists. So I don't think you judge people by how they vote. I think you judge people by how they treat each other.
Well, and it seems like we did have that, and I agree with you on the timing somewhere in there. I don't know how.
It's around in there.
I don't even know if Obama had much to do with it.
No.
I think it was more that maybe social media played a role.
And the thought that maybe now there's less for me, and maybe, like maybe that I haven't figured it out yet.
Maybe gentle parenting.
I don't know. I'm a gentle parenter. I don't think everybody gets an award. I think that's nonsense. Everybody gets a trophy. Not everybody gets a trophy, okay? But I think one of the mistakes maybe that we've made is like some people are cruel to their children, and then their kids carry this trauma. And I think you surround your kids with love. I started by saying we were dirt poor, but we had a lot of love.
Yeah.
I knew I was loved. And so I knew at the end of the day, no matter what I did with myself, my parents loved me. And so if gentle parenting equals love, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with, everybody gets a trophy and you don't have to work hard. And like, I'm not okay with
I think everybody gets a
concept.
trophy, no boundaries, that sort of thing.
I don't like that.
Yeah, there's a point at which it goes too far. And maybe it didn't play a role in this, but
yeah,
I do think of like where we used to have respectful debate.
Yes.
Amongst everybody for anything that you wanted to discuss. And we could, go along and get along. And it was like, okay, well, me and my mother-in-law, we disagree on a ton of stuff.
Yes.
But we can have 3-hour conversations about it and, give each other a hug and a kiss.
Yeah. Or not even talk about it and be like, that rhubarb pie was really good.
Yeah.
And then leave it at that.
But even you mentioned Bell Gloss.
Yeah.
And so I have this same thing. So it's not just like on the political landscape. I gotta go and I gotta bring it down to reality here for a sec. So you look at the political landscape and it's like, okay, you can see these tensions between whoever you're voting for, you're Democrat, Republican, whatever. But that filters all the way down into, private business. And so
I hate
that.
And
individuals. And so we have sommeliers out there.
Yeah.
I have great relationships with a lot of them. But then there are a few that are really loud that do not like our style of wine because they think we over-extract, we're over-ripe, and whatever else. And it's like,
they're wrong.
I'm like, you guys, I appreciate that you have a preference, but don't take that preference and try to blanket it across every table you're serving.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a different palate. And that diversity is what really drives the industry or all industries. If you make something people don't like, they won't buy it.
Exactly.
And that's going to be the end of that product.
Exactly.
But you can make 15,000 different styles of wine.
Yes.
And if you have a diverse enough community that's going to support that much individuality across the spectrum of different varieties and regions and styles, then great. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Rather than try to force something down the throat of other people.
And it affects small businesses. Like, it's interesting to me when there'll be someone that says, you don't want to buy their so-and-so supporter. And I'm like, but what if I like the product?
Yeah.
Like, what if I like that? And it happens on our show a lot. People misinterpret what they hear, what has been said, and they're like, I'm not watching that show anymore, which is nonsense. We're the #1 talk show in the country. They're watching the show. Even if they're hate watching it, they're watching the show.
Even if they're hate watching it.
Even if they're hate watching it, they're watching the show. It's 3 million viewers a day. It's the #1 talk show in the country and has been for years, right? I think what's really hard is that notion that you may not agree with me, and so what I say means nothing. And I don't know that we've ever been in that place. It feels really new.
I agree. And I mean, my big question for me, and I don't, like, you're a national voice, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just a winemaker. So,
a very good winemaker.
And a TikTok influencer.
Oh, and
yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I accidentally became an influencer.
Yes.
That should have been first, Joe.
Yes.
So, a winemaker, but
that's
anyways,
right.
I didn't mean to
That's
correct
right.
you.
Yeah.
And the wine.
I get recognized more for being a TikToker than I do a winemaker. That is true. And it's embarrassing, but it's true. No, but how do we get it back on the rails? Like, because my kids, as they've become 18 and they're, or the other ones are getting close to 18, I do see that they're carrying forward this extreme sort of like my way or the highway. It's like there's this tension.
Yeah.
And you're like, guys, just chill. You guys, like, you can be friends with everybody
yes,
and
you
respect
can.
them.
Yes, you can.
But I don't know what it is that's going to get us back there. But, is that something you guys talk about on The View or?
We talk about it on the show. We talk about it backstage. I certainly talk about it in our home because, take it or leave it. We have, are we having more bell glass?
Of course we are.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
You're catching
Are we
a
doing an
flight
intermission
tonight.
here?
I am catching a flight.
I like
Intermission.
I'm just going to sleep
We got
for a little bit.
If you're
But-
hearing something,
coming out.
if you're hearing something,
This is great.
this is not a bathroom break. This is wine pouring into a glass.
This is amazing. No, look, I think, within my own family, there is a political divide. And it was so significant one year that my mother was like, I will not speak to my nephew at Thanksgiving. And I was like, what you will not do is that. Like, you won't do that. Like, I won't allow it. Like, I just think that people are entitled to get to where they are politically, and you don't have to agree on where they are. You do have to agree that they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to agree that they're kind people and that they have empathy and that they have real understanding of the issues, that they're informed. I'll tell a quick story about my son. My father lives in Florida, and he's like a black dude from down south, from Georgia, from Augusta, Georgia, who married a white woman in 1968, a year after the Loving decision. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, a Jewish, European, Puerto Rican woman.
This is them?
Who has blonde hair and blue eyes. That's me and my dad, or my dad and I, and my mom is somewhere. But she's blonde, and she's light eyes. And we do have divides in our family. And my dad, how people say they don't see color? I don't really believe that, because, like, do you drive? Can you see the red, yellow, and green? Like, that's nonsense. Like, you see color. All people ask is that you see the color, but you treat everyone the same. Yeah. And that's how my dad is. So he moves as this black dude from down south to Florida, and he's the only one in the building. He's like the only black dude in the building. And like, I walk in, I'm like, wow, how you doing? Like, you're the only black guy in the building. He's like, no, I think there's like a guy who looks like mixed race, or like maybe he's like Middle Eastern or something like that. I'm like, that's your answer? He's like, yeah.
There's another dude.
Yeah, he's like, there's like another dude. He's really cool. Like, I've met him. And then I was like, so you just invited your 6'2", really big grandson, who's also kind of ethnically ambiguous, but, other. And I'm like, Gabriel's coming, Dad. And you know how he is. And like, he just talks to everyone. So my son runs, just like I walk a couple miles a day. He probably runs 10 miles a day. My father says to him, when you go out of the property, because my dad lives right on the beach, run left. But of course, no. Of course, no. He runs right. And he starts seeing Confederate flags.
Oh.
And Trump 2024. And he starts seeing MAGA hats, a lot of MAGA hats. And I asked my son, how did it make you feel? He said, curious. Because my son's more of an independent, And I said, what do you mean curious? I just felt curious. I said, so what did you do? Well, I walked up to one of the MAGA guys, and I'm like, oh, God. Like, because I'm so recognizable, I can't walk up to the MAGA guys. Like, they're like, that's that girl. And not all of them, but some of them. So he walks up. He's made a best friend, brings him back to my dad. My dad and the guy are hanging out now. And what they realize is they have so much in common, except maybe for their politics. And I think that was the case before. And so we were probably all across political spectrums. But now, like, people have to, like, put hats on and, like, flags and do all this stuff, as opposed to, like, getting to know people. And I think this guy was like, told my father, your son is welcome here anytime. And that's what it kind of should be like everywhere. Like, it doesn't really matter what your affiliation is, but I don't know what happened, but I hope that we get back to that place where my son can take a right and not worry about it. Not that he does, but I hope that is the case. But it hasn't been. For what I can count is I've been on The View 8 years, going on 9, so maybe 6, something like that. Like, people actually like want you to announce who you are and denounce this and denounce that. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, there's I've seen some really funny stand-up about that too, where it's like
what's your favorite lettuce, or like your like what dressing do you like? Do you like figs? You like figs? I don't like figs. Like, I mean, what happened to that?
Maybe there was something with like the like ratings and likes, like where which I also think drives more extreme viewpoints, right? So it's like, okay, we know. I mean, let's take CNN and Fox News.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When I'm in a hotel room, because I'm pretty middle of the road, like
same.
So if I'm in a hotel room,
and the people would not believe that, but
I just toggle back and forth, especially in a crisis period, right?
Because you want to hear what everyone is thinking.
And I love. I'm like, these are totally different stories. Like literally, like they sound so different. And
same country.
The truth is somewhere in the middle, and
always,
and that's how it always is. But the desire to do that, driven by maybe the ratings,
unfortunately, yes.
So does that push these? Maybe that is what it is. Maybe that's what's pushing these ideological extremes.
I think for better or for worse, and people will write into your podcast or whatever. Write to me. I'm sure they know how to find me. I think for better or for worse, Trump gave people, the former president, gave people a lot of permission to say what they were thinking. They were thinking these things. A lot of the country were thinking certain things on both sides of the aisle, not on one side, on both sides of the aisle. And I think in some ways that's a good thing, because I like to know where you stand. Again, as a woman, a multiracial woman, someone that's public facing, I like to know what I'm facing. I like to know that. I think it gave people permission to say, I don't like you because of this, or I like you because of this, or I stand by you because of this. And I am certainly more progressive on many, many issues that people are not progressive on, especially as a Catholic. I'm much more progressive. I'm certainly anti-war. I'm certainly pro-peace. I'm certainly an animal lover that spends so much money on rescuing animals and rescues. Again, there are a lot of problems here in California and in Texas and New York to a lesser extent for animals. So I like to put my plug in there to please foster and don't shop, adopt. But I think that we've come to a place where people feel pretty good about telling you what they think of you. In not the kindest way. We've had a loss of empathy.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And that saddens me, especially because I have been a victim of it. I hate to call myself a victim of it, but like I'm a survivor of it, I will say. And my children also. And even my husband, you know, I said something on air and one of his business associates was like, I don't want to do business with you anymore.
Wow.
And someone he had been doing business with for so long. My daughter says something. I may or may not agree with it, you know, but that's my kid. And I have someone that's like, I don't want to do business with you. And I'm like, wow. So we've come to a place where the First Amendment, freedom of speech, doesn't matter. And freedom of association doesn't matter. Now, yeah, if you don't like what someone says, you can certainly decide not to do business with them. But like someone you're affiliated with says something, you don't even know if I agree with it. And then you're going to come down and say, I'm not going to do business with you because of that. We're in a place.
It's extreme.
Honestly, I've never seen before.
Oh, man, I was hoping you'd have some answers on how we're going to correct this.
I do have answers. I actually do have answers. I hope I do, because it's something that we talk about every day. I think that this country was founded on the most incredible principles. I think our Supreme Court has the lowest approval rating that it's ever had in its life. I'm a member of the Supreme Court bar. Actually, I've been a lawyer for over 30 years. And I've written amicus briefs in front of the Supreme Court, and I've argued in front of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and you know, which is the second highest court, and the D.C. Court of Appeals. So I've done all the things. What I will say is, the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. It's because the founding fathers thought that we should have a separation between church and state, that we should be able to say what we felt, and that we should be able to peacefully assemble, that we should be able to peacefully protest, and we should still be neighbors, and we should still find common ground. And for some reason, we've lost that. So my plea to people is let people speak their mind and do what we do on The View. We get down on The View. You have seen it. You have seen us argue and agree to disagree. And we don't always get it right, but we walk away from that table as sisters. And we go back, and once in a while we continue the conversation. I tend to not to do that. I don't like to do that. I like to leave it at the table because I know that I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to love you like a sister. And we're going to have this conversation or another conversation again. And I think that's what this country needs to do. Disagree with your neighbor and say, you're full of it. I don't agree with it. Yeah. I'm going to hang my flag upside down like Justice Alito's wife. And I'm going to say F Trump on this, or I love Trump on that, or, you know, Biden is senile, whatever you want to say. But love your neighbor at the end of the day, regardless of how you feel politically. And if we can do that, which is what we did for years upon years upon years because we wouldn't talk about politics, religion, or money at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should still be able to talk about those things, yet at the end of the day, walk away from that dinner table and be neighbors and lovers and friends.
I agree. I just don't know how we're going to get back to it because it seems like the polarization is too tempting and too lucrative.
I believe we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I'm helping overpopulate the world with 6 children, but
You have a lot of children. You have a lot of children.
but
and
hopefully
that's a
I've taught
blessing.
them that they have to carry that forward. That's
That's
an
a blessing.
important part
I
of
don't want it for myself.
Yeah.
But it's a blessing for you. I wanted 5, and I only have 2.
it. 2's good. 2's solid.
Really?
Is it?
Is it? My husband wanted 2, and he won.
No, it was. I just had a challenge, and it was as many kids before I'm 30. That was it. And it was like wow, they pop out quick.
They do. They show up.
They do. But I do see a lot of. I mean, overall, there's always going to be these little, dense pockets of extremity, right? And
Sure.
most of that kind
On
of
both sides.
Yeah, both sides, and it's always the end of the bell curve.
Yes.
On either side, and it's always that little 5% on each end that seems to get the most.
The loudest voices.
They're the loudest voices, and they get paid the most attention.
They do. I actually just sorry to interrupt you. I just got a thing from my agent that said only 20% of the country is on X now because it's become quite the hellscape. And out of the 20% on X, 80% of those people are the loudest. So you get on there and you're like, everybody believes this. And then it's like, no, it's actually 80% of 20%.
So it's a very that's a very concentrated. That's a distilled group.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Spoken like a winemaker.
I'm not.
Yes, it's a distilled group, right? Like a spirits maker.
I'm
It's
just
a
giving you some
distilled
like fun
group.
terms to use on The View. Because when I hear you be like, it's a distilled group,
It's a
be like,
distilled group. I like
I don't
the way
need the
that
credit, but I love it.
sounds.
We gotta go back to the bunghole, or I don't.
all the great
Distilled.
terms.
Yeah,
in
all the
one.
great wine terms there.
It
But
is.
I was in Arkansas. This is a couple years back.
I spent a lot of time in Arkansas, in Bentonville.
Okay, in Bentonville, yeah, the home of Walmart. Yep.
Yeah.
And Bentonville's great, and then there are a couple other areas that are just north of that where
Yeah.
I was very surprised to see. We were talking about you had mentioned something about having pride in your opinion. To just feel like, oh, I can just come out and say this in
Sure.
an aggressive way now. Like people feel entitled to that.
Sure.
Yes, you should be able to speak it, but speak it respectfully.
Yes.
But what I saw down there was very unique. It was not in Bentonville. It was was it Rogers or something? It was north of Bentonville, and we were staying in a little bed and breakfast. It was just my wife and I, and my wife is she's actually a like North African Jew.
Oh,
Descent of
she has me beat because I'm Sephardic Jew and I'm African American and Puerto Rican.
and so
she has me beat.
it was from Morocco. So there's Middle Eastern Moroccan Jewish. She was raised Jewish, and so we were there and started to see that white pride is a real thing still there in some areas, but it was like very much pockets.
Yeah.
The area we were at was very much that, and they were very open to talking about it. And it was, I mean, I had some Uber drivers that were like,
Sure.
It was hard to talk to them about this stuff where you're like, okay, I'm right on the edge here. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince you, like, there are other opinions, but they're like, no, this is the way we live. This is our life.
Yes.
I just thought it was really interesting to see that there are still some pockets of that, but they, in my opinion, whenever I spoke to, and there were like 3, they were open to listening, and I was worried for my life.
Yeah.
And I would not dare tell them that my wife was Jewish who was sitting in the passenger seat.
Yeah. No.
But it was like, I was like, oh, they're actually like, they're very prideful about this, but they are willing to hear me out.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that sounds like progress. As bad as that sounds like progress.
It's huge progress. I mean, again, I point to The View. We sit there for an hour and we talk about things that you are told you should not talk about. Religion, reproductive health rights, politics, money, relationships, all the things that at a dinner table you don't talk about. And we do it, and I think we do it pretty well. And I will tell you, there are real divides at our table. We really disagree with each other.
Who's the most extreme? Not in a negative way, but who would you say who are the most polarizing, if you can say?
Yeah,
I don't want to.
I think that it's clear that Joy Behar believes very strongly in progressive politics because she's 81 and she lived through some of our fascist leanings. I think Sarah Haynes, actually, who is an independent, is actually quite conservative. She's from Iowa. Her husband's quite conservative. And while you may think, well, she's like really in the middle, she's not really in the middle. And so she feels very strongly about a lot of things. The person that has surprised me the most, quite frankly, is Alyssa Farah Griffin, who worked for Trump, who I gave a real hard time the first year. I give a lot of people a hard time, but I give her.
They got to prove their place there.
Yeah, you got to earn your seat, man.
You don't just walk in.
Excuse me, ma'am. You have to earn your seat. I've been here 8 years. She is someone who surprises me so often because she's 35 and is still, like you are sort of alluding to, I think, Joe, she's still very open to learning things and open to other positions, which is something I did not think she would be as open to. Now, we disagree vehemently about a lot of things, but that's interesting to me. And Whoopi is really fascinating because she's lived. And you have to say that with like a cigarette in your mouth. She's lived. Right. You have to do that. And she knows so many people and she has a lot of different viewpoints. It's kind of hard to pin her down depending on what the issue is. And that's what I'm accused of. I'm accused of it's difficult to pin me down on certain things because I am quite progressive in many things, but I'm a little bit, I'm kind of in the middle as a Catholic.
Got it. Yeah.
When it comes to, things. And I'm not as to the left as a lot of people think. I consider progressive and left a little bit different. So I would say that's kind of our mix in a sense. And Anna Navarro, who is a Republican, stumped for Biden because she sees a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
She sees, she's someone who came from Nicaragua, who's probably saw some of the worst of the things that none of us have ever seen. And she doesn't want to see the fall of democracy. So she has a different opinion as well. And she surprises me sometimes. But again, think about all that I just said. Like, that's a tumultuous group of people, yet we leave it at the table and we are like sisters backstage. Like, Sarah loves to, I always say she's the sister I never asked for because I'm an only child. She loves to come into the bathroom, even though I've locked the door, I thought. I brought a pair of her pants here and they didn't fit. And I, texted her and I was like, you've gained weight. And she's like, those are not my pants. So we're like messing around with each other and we love each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important part of just having different points of view. At the end of the day, can you love each other even though you feel differently? Like,
do you think your audience knows that you all respect and love each other?
Well, you know what? This season, I think they do. I think they see that we have not only love for each other, but we're trying to figure each other out. I think if you look at me in particular more closely, I'm asking more questions this season because sometimes Alyssa says something and I don't get it. And I'm like, are you saying this? because I don't think that's what you're saying. And sometimes she's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm like, okay. And Sarah will say something and I'm like, I don't, because Sarah and Alyssa align on most things. And I'm like, I don't get what you're saying. Like, what do you mean by that? We had a recent discussion about uncommitted voters. And I was like, I don't get what you're saying. Are they uncommitted or not? And it's just been a great dynamic for me to learn from these women because we just don't agree on a lot. And Anna Navarro and I agree on very little, except for the fact that we're both Latina, and we speak Spanish as a first language. That's kind of all we agree on. And well, we like the same foods too, but and we like to drink tequila and stuff like that. But it's been a great season for me to be around 5 other women whom I don't really agree with, but I'm learning so much from. And I think that's what the country should be doing.
Well, maybe the country could be, how do they view more of that? I think is what the, what would be, I'd be curious about is,
yeah,
because I think we're all being fed so much about being extreme on one subject or another and not finding balance within each other's own ideologies. And if you saw something like you got 3 million viewers a day.
Yeah, we do.
And it's like, well, making sure that you drive that point home. I just had it out with her and we do not see eye to eye on this, but we're going to go have a glass of wine right after this show.
That's a
and
great
everything's
point,
going to be fine.
because we don't see that. Maybe we need to have a Bell Gloss after segment. But, I'm like
I wasn't even trying to do
I'm
that.
like really feeling that actually.
Was the series on Amazon not enough for you?
Yeah, like I'm
The
like
View?
really feeling that because we can do that. We do have moments when after the show, it's not every day, but there are moments after the show where we're like, what did that mean? Like, because we're very passionate.
Like when the cameras are off and
Yes.
you're still like going at it.
Yes, we are.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
So it really is to your core sometimes. Yeah.
We would not be on this show if we did not feel as passionate as we did. I actually wish some of the ladies would be even more passionate on air. My dream is that some of us cared less about what people think and our brands and all of this stuff, and give you what you need, which is an unvarnished view of what we are thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to
ahead.
say though, what I love what you said though is that this season what you've been doing is asking more questions.
I am.
And that hits me into the solution of what we've been talking about, because what I see a lot is assumption.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to maybe I am going back to the 4 agreements, but I see like that being an
I love
issue.
that book.
Thank you.
Excuse
Thank you.
me,
High five.
Chris.
All right. Told
Excuse
you.
me, Chris. The 4 agreements. Should we go to the
Boom.
Alchemist also?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now we're doing. Yeah, I'm on
Okay,
that train.
Chris.
I'm there. We're writing it. That's what I'm talking about. But yes.
Do we have another hour, guys?
We're about to get into it, Art.
Okay.
I hope you packed a lunch.
Okay,
and dinner.
Chris. 4 agreement, Chris.
But I'm serious, and I see it a lot on social, and it's just, and what we're talking about is someone will hear a belief that is contrast to their belief, and therefore assumes that then you're this, that, fill in all the blanks without asking questions.
Yes.
Right? And really listening with, and I, whatever, I'm a sentimental guy, but listening with the heart.
With
right?
empathy.
Yes.
Not
With empathy.
Which I agree.
Oh, it's so disappointing. And I don't think it's something that I did enough of during the past years. Like I'd hear people say things and I'd be like horrified, like, oh, that didn't make sense. And I don't know why I didn't feel comfortable enough to say, that doesn't make sense to me. What do you mean? Now, granted, we have an hour, okay? And with commercials, there is like less than an hour. But this season, I feel a little more comfortable saying, I don't get that. Are you saying this? And I've said it like a lot lately. Like, are you saying that
Yeah.
there are no undecided voters? Was that what you meant by that? Like, I've asked that question on air. Yes, there aren't. I was like, I don't believe that to be true. You know, like, where are the stats for that? So I think we feel safe enough with each other to challenge each other and say, well, you just said something in front of 3 million people, and I love you, and with love and empathy, I'm going to say, what do you mean by that? And if we do more of that, perhaps we get back to where we were years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think that's where to start. I mean, it's just a matter of how we can all do that, and go to the think globally, act locally, right? Where you just have to start at you do it at a very small scale and hope that it just continues to.
Well, your
spread.
local politics is really the most important politics. Like, we just had a local vote in my town, and I live in a small town. I'm like texting. I get up the earliest in the house, or if my husband is not out already, and I'm like, "Don't forget to vote. The vote is right at the school. It's at the grammar school." And my mom forgot. My son was home. He forgot. My daughter's 18. I'm like, "This is like your first vote." She's like, "I don't know enough about the candidates." Great. You've got time.
Do some research.
Poll like it ends at 9 p.m. Paloma. Like, you've got plenty of time to look in.
I was so excited when I could first vote.
Right?
It was
I don't think I've missed a vote.
And it was.
I hope I haven't missed one. Maybe I have.
That was like such a rite of passage, and
it's important.
Yeah,
it's important.
Really, yeah.
It's your voice. I think you do need to research. Like, some people get in there and they just like vote right down the line. I'm not one of those people. I get in there and I like get the list and I start researching, like, what are their positions on this and their positions on that and their positions on this. And I've encouraged my family to do the same. But I was so proud of all of us because I was getting like all these pictures, like with my mom, like, I voted. My husband's like, I voted. My son was like, I voted. Like, everybody. My daughter, like, behind the wheel, I voted. Like, everybody was voting. And I just think it's really important to have your voice be heard. It doesn't matter what the vote is. It just matters that you have a say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're contributing to something.
Yeah, you have a say.
Yeah.
Even if I disagree with your say.
Yeah.
I think you have a say.
Yes.
It's no longer one person, one vote, unfortunately. I think we need to go back to that. It's the Electoral College, which is, grounded in slavery. So
unwinding that, I mean, there are so many things we should unwind.
That needs to be changed, but at least have a say.
Have you seen these videos where parents will go into their kids' adult houses and act like they acted in their parents' house?
No, but I should.
You got to watch some of these.
Oh,
they're
TikTok
hilarious.
or
it's like Instagram, TikTok, any of them.
Yeah.
And I'll have to send some to you, but they are like, so like it'll be the mom and dad go into the house. It's like their kid's 25 now.
Yeah.
And they'll like, pull stuff out of the pantry and just like leave crumbs on the counter.
Yeah.
Never put anything away. Milk is left out. They'll throw their clothes, like socks over here and there and whatever.
You're just looking at it. You're like,
and it's just like the shit that I and you live through. Maybe not so much anymore because like teenage years are like they are the dumbest humans ever
worst.
As teens,
and they don't even know they're dumb.
No, they don't. No,
16.
Oh, because they know everything, right?
They think they know, and they act like they know everything. 16
for a girl is bad. 18's better, and for boys, like 16 was bad. And then by 18, he was like, I was bad. I was like, yeah, you were bad. and then he got better. But like that, those like 13 to like 18.
I agree.
You don't know what's happening, and like you're the devil, and you're like so terrible to them, and they're adulting, but they have no money. They don't have a job. They don't really have a place to live unless you let them live there.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. My son tried to convince me at 16. He's like, I don't see why I can't have my girlfriend sleep over.
Like, you know,
I was like a
you know, I can't see why I should allow you to possibly become a father.
Yeah.
At 18.
I was like a hotel.
Yeah.
Like my house is a hotel for sex, like that. I think you've gotten something out of me that a lot of people haven't had. That like we really, there are a few of us on the table that have pretty extreme views that people don't see.
Yeah.
They don't get to see.
Would the View ever have a male host?
No.
That's a specific.
We've spoken about it.
Yeah.
That was not Barbara Walters' vision, but what I love is Guy Day Fridays. There aren't that many guys that can do it, to be honest with you. And it's not because we all are like, you're wrong, you know, it's not because of that.
Like they're scared to get a lashing.
It's not that. It's that it's really a show that, for better or for worse, is meant to be seen through a female lens.
Mm-hmm.
But there are men that have sat in on the show and we think to ourselves, this guy can sit in on a Friday when Whoopi is not in, and Anna may not be in, and be okay. So some of the guys that can do it is Don Lemon,
Okay.
without question. Chris Cuomo,
Okay.
without question. Hakeem Jeffries, without question. Bakari Sellers, without question.
Who was one that did not work?
I have not been there. Let me think, because I've been there long enough to know some people don't work. Mario Cantone works because he's a comedian and he's Joy's friend, so he doesn't work in the sense that like he's giving like insight into how do we fix the world, right? But he is elevating the comedy.
Yeah.
And so that works. We haven't yet had a guy that comes on that fails. And I think it's really because we're so careful. I mean, how many Guy Day Fridays can you like really think about that work out? So sometimes you'll hear us say, come back. And we reach out and they're like, no, I'm good. I made it through.
I made it through.
Their ego is so bruised.
Yeah,
they're just like,
they're
oh my
like,
god, tail between the legs.
Yeah. I'm good. I'm not coming back. But there have been a couple of guys, like we had A-Rod come on years ago. He was with Jennifer Lopez at the time, and I thought he did really well. He was a gentleman. He answered a lot of questions. And I think the other women, you know, felt like, oh, well, he did okay considering what we do.
Yeah.
But some of the best male Guy Fridays really have been, I would say, Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon.
Yeah,
like,
I could see. Yeah, Don Lemon is.
Those two, they can get in there and really figure it out.
Yeah.
They
can adapt.
They're very, very
Adapt
good.
to the pressure.
Yeah, and there are a couple of comedians. D.L. Hughley would be really good. There's a comedian, not Bill Maher, but Bill
Burr.
Yes.
Burr.
Was he good?
I would love to have. No, that's one of my dream guests. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We've had him on the show, I believe. But for me, Bill Burr would be a guy I just like to hear what he would say about some of the stuff that we talk about.
He has a very unfettered view of everything he talks about.
And that's what you need to be on the show.
A lot of what he says, you know, you may not agree with it, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, from a logical standpoint, from a man's point of view or whatever, like, and he's funny in his delivery. So I actually got to see him live once, and I thought he was absolutely hilarious.
I think he's hilarious. I saw him live also. My husband loves comedy, but he loves like basement New York new comedy people.
Okay.
And so I sit through people that are unfunny, if that is a word.
Like you're going to a comedy club and just seeing act after act after act.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That is a date that he's like, I'm taking you on a date tonight, honey. And I'm like, great. And then I get down there and I'm like, oh no, it's this night. And
like no fucking roses.
Yeah, no. I can get chicken wings and a drink, and not Bell Gloss, by the way. I just get a drink. Yeah. Like if I get some tequila, I'm good. But I think that DL and Bill Burr, Don and Chris would be my top 4.
Okay, that's great.
They can kill it.
You know, you
if you
mentioned...
could have a 5th, then maybe Joe.
No,
what's up?
No.
If you're willing, I mean, it's this.
Look at that. Wait, what's that?
Oh, he's
Joe.
Joe's like,
I should have just cut you off.
Joe's like, I don't know. This is what I tell you, Joe. It's like it is unvarnished, and the scary thing about it is it's unvarnished, right? So we talked earlier about small businesses and what the effect could be when people hear about what you think, and you'd be surprised. Like I have said the most innocuous things, like I don't really like non-sharp cheddar. Right? Like how is that like crazy?
And then you're like a meme or something.
And then you're like a horrible person. So like you step onto landmines that you would have no idea.
Didn't expect it.
Yeah.
You just hit somebody's trigger button.
Yeah, it could crush you and you have no idea. That's why I say people like the 4 that I mentioned, they're kind of used to it. But you it's like the gauntlet. Like the thing is swinging and you're walking through it.
You don't quite have the timing.
No. No.
You just get your ass knocked off at any second. You're like,
it's like, wow. It happens to me
The other guys
sometimes.
are coming back.
Yeah. Like, it happens to me. Like, it's like, what's the name of it? I loved it. I actually just played it at the Netflix Open Fronts, Squid Games.
oh yeah.
It's like, you're playing Squid Games at The View every day. And you don't know if you're going to make it, man. You may say something that takes you out. And you have no idea. Like, do you want to take that chance?
Yeah, really. That's a risk.
It's unappetizing.
That's a big risk.
Yeah.
And the viewership is what are the demographics of the viewership?
The demos are really interesting. Our demos are 55 and over.
Okay.
Right? That's the average, which means we're under and over. But what's fascinating to me is the number of men that watch and the number of non-white women that watch. That's always kind of surprising to me because this is Barbara Walters' show.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, and I'll get you the numbers, but it's kind of fascinating. The age group remains the same. It's 55 and over, or it's 55 average. And then it goes under and over, depending on the guests, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it depends on the guests. Like who we have, it changes. But the demo doesn't change in terms of the men and the women. And I feel like it's definitely like 70% women and 30% men. It's not a small amount of men.
Yeah. That's actually more than I thought it would be.
Oh, it's at least 30. And I could be wrong because I just asked my agent. I was like, what are the demographics? Yeah. I can get my phone and tell you in a second.
I was just curious about it. I mean, I think that because, if you're pulling 30% males, like
we are,
then that's awesome. That's
we
huge.
are 100% pulling 30% men. And the other makeup is really interesting. And the age demographic is interesting too, because if the average age is 55, you're like, okay, that show's dying. But linear television is watched by people that are 55 and older. It's appointment television for them.
I personally the on-demand stuff is great, but
great.
I don't have TV anymore in my house.
Neither do we.
But if I'm on the road,
we cut the cord.
Yeah, if I'm on the road, it's like I like that it's just like it's like turning a light switch on rather than having to grab my phone.
I watch Hulu or Disney Plus or
air back to the simplicity.
Yeah.
of things, and that, I mean, I find joy in that.
And we're on Hulu, and it's fascinating to us that I get more fan mail from, well, this, I guess it's not unusual, but I get more fan mail from men than women. But the men are very interested in the topics we talk about, and some of them are like, why not talk more about male topics? Why not talk about this? Why not talk about that? And like, I talk about my husband a lot. He's not happy about it, but I do. But I think, if you look at the talk that tried to combine men and women, it didn't work. If you look at the reel that tried talk about hit a younger demo, it didn't work. The only one that has worked is our show. And it's been on for 20, I think it's my 8th year, so it's 28 seasons.
I've got a topic that would be great, and I am a
Oh my goodness.
true believer in this.
Is it about wine? Because that's my favorite topic.
I wish it was.
That was
But no, that so you were talking about, reproductive rights and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a vasectomy.
Oh my goodness.
So
Since the demise of Roe v. Wade, vasectomies have gone up 20%.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes, they have.
So okay, so here's
I mean, you have
here's
6 or 7 kids.
I got 6.
It's smart.
Here's my
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying what everyone
that's
wishes
a
to
smart
say.
thing to do.
Thanks,
We did it. She hit it.
Christ.
We're in there.
I've never been here, so I didn't know you had that. That's smart.
So here's my thing is that it was so goddamn easy. I will tell you,
And they're reversible.
and they're reversible with like a 90, it's like nearly 100%
Yeah, it is.
reversible rate.
It is.
So this is what I think, because I've seen, of course, firsthand the different types of birth control, IUDs, the pill, whatever.
They don't all work.
They don't all work, and they are not really great for like for anything. Like
No.
because I've tried to pitch this. I've got 4 boys and 2 girls, and I've tried to pitch this to my boys. And I'm like, if you get a vasectomy, you're not going to have to worry about all the other, and they're like, oh my God, that's horrible. I would never do that. I'm like, I got one, and they're super easy, and you get them reversed, and that's really that's a little more difficult, but not hard.
It's like the best thing, and it's so much easier.
Yeah, it is.
It's so
very
much
easy.
easier than a
Oh, and-
woman being
Like
like
they give you some drugs that are pretty cool.
propofol.
Like, I
is
mean,
not
just like
bad.
for like
Wait,
a day.
tell me about the cool drugs you got.
Whatever they gave me, it's like
he got
you just-
great drugs,
Yeah, I just got like a day or 2 of good drugs,
and now he doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, my doctor. You're gonna. This is pretty funny. Talking to him about it, Dr. Turek, and he's got a clinic in L.A. and a clinic in San Francisco. And so I'm asking him like, what do you see? What are like, what's your client base?
Yeah.
He's like, well, in L.A. the majority of what I see are porn stars, and in the Bay Area the majority of what I see are athletes.
Oh, that's so smart.
I was like,
Whoa.
wow, because they know
Yeah.
Targets.
that they are a target,
Yeah.
right?
Targets.
And so they're like, and they don't even need to say anything, but they know they're going to make bad decisions when they're on the road.
Of
Yeah.
course they are.
It's
Yeah.
what they do. Like it's
It's
just,
so smart.
and so they go and get a vasectomy,
Huh.
and they don't have to give a damn
It's
about it.
so
Yeah.
smart. And I will say, I mean, if you're someone who grew up Catholic, grew up as a family person, who happens to love children, I think if someone tells you there's a 1% chance you won't be able to have kids, that's scary. And I can see that, but like 1% is so low
And you can always freeze it.
in terms of that. But when you look at the stats now, post the demise of Roe v. Wade, it was 20% the last time I looked at it, which means it could have gone up. And it's so smart.
Yeah.
It's so smart.
Well, if you guys haven't talked about it on The View yet, I think that you
So that's-
should.
Well, we did. We talked
did,
about it,
okay.
but we haven't talked about whether or not those numbers have changed. So I will bring that up because I'm fascinated by that. Like, I'm like, it's like,
Could you
just like you take your daughter to the OBGYN right before she goes to college.
Uh-huh.
And it's like birth control. Let's talk about this and let's talk about that. It's shocking to me that mothers and fathers of sons don't take their kids to their sons, their boys, to the doctor and say, what about a vasectomy? What about this? Because, by the way, if there were male birth control pills,
Oh, yeah.
we'd be fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine if there was some sort of just a little incentive?
Yeah.
$500. You're 19 years old, 18 years old.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would work. And I think that it would be
It's over.
it would relax a lot on the system.
And
when it
you're
comes to that
telling
kind of stuff.
people it didn't hurt that much and the drugs were really good.
It was
It's like
I mean,
nothing.
I
It's
wouldn't.
like
I
having
wouldn't just-
popcorn.
yeah, it was really fucking.
It's like having popcorn and watching a good movie.
You're just
and
Netflix and
chilling,
chilling.
and that's all you do afterwards.
That's what you're doing.
You have the excuse of you know what? For 2 days, I'm just gonna chill.
I'm gonna chill.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like a little home vacation.
I'm gonna have popcorn and watch a great movie. That's what you did. If younger people knew that was an option, the only downside is, what if you can't reverse it? And I think that's what they're afraid of.
Yeah, but the likelihood of that, and then you take all the other infertility stats and layer that in, and you're just more likely to have a difficult time getting pregnant
Yeah.
or being infertile
Yeah.
statistically than you are with the reversal stats for a vasectomy.
I like the sperm freezing though. I hadn't thought about the sperm freezing and the
You can bank it all, man.
vasectomy.
Yeah.
Bank it all.
Oh, that
I
is,
hadn't thought
that's
of
the
that.
combo.
That's
that's
a
a combo meal right
that's
there.
like that's like a KFC.
You gotta have an
really
insurance
good.
policy.
That's like a number 6.
Gotta have the insurance policy.
Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. Like I'm learning about wine and I'm learning about
How to convince your
options for
child.
my
That's
what
kid.
happens
Yeah, it's
here.
very
We talk about
responsible.
everything.
This is like
And I hope it inspires other people out there.
this is like an
That's it.
education.
Well, Sonny, I want to say thank you very much for coming.
Oh,
I know we got to wind
thank
down.
you
You got to
so
get ready
much,
for your
Sonny.
flight. It was a great
Seriously.
conversation, and it was a total blast showing you around the winery too. That was,
Like I said, I get to do a lot of really special things. Top 5.
well,
Wow.
thank you. And I
That-
knew that as soon as you got out of that van and you had that crossbody satchel, I was like, yeah, this is going to be good.
Chris and I are cut from the same cloth.
You got- yeah,
You hear that, Joe? And I knew
We're cut
what
from
she
the
said.
same
you
cloth.
look like you
She
could be.
said
You
that.
look like you'd be related almost, actually.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Sonny.
We are. We're cut from the same cloth.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Truly. Thank you, Sonny.
Thank you.
All right, signing off.
All right. Peace.